G'day pals, welcome back to a new video. Today, I thought we would do something super chill and kind of unstructured, a little kind of Bob Ross style, just like pixel art painting session. And in the spirit of the season, I thought we'd do one based on an Easter bunny and some eggs. This is just going to be something you can follow along with, and it's going to double as a little bit of a vlog while I chat about what's going on with me and just the state of my work and my life. So strap in, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about before we get into this is just like the objective, and I want to approach it the way I approach creating any pixel art for my game or otherwise. So the first thing I have is this kind of mood board that I create. This is kind of like just a reference board, just things taken from Google that I can use to kind of filter down a subset of the things that I want and just get a vision of what I think is important about what I'm trying to make. So in this case, you know, we think about the themes of Easter, it's rebirth, it's spring. So, you know, this blue sky, green grass is kind of nice. The basket seems to be an interesting element that comes up a lot. Thinking about the ways that I might want to represent this rabbit. Is it a baby rabbit? Is it more of like a character sized rabbit, like a Bugs Bunny kind of thing? And then how do we want to decorate the eggs? Do we want them to be chocolate eggs or eggs that are simply painted? So these are things that I'll be thinking about and working with as I'm working in the Sprite document. Speaking of which, what I'm going to do is start with an empty canvas. This is, I'll recreate it for you, just 64 by 64 pixels. We're going to keep this mid-size, and for the sake of what we're doing, I'm just going to use my own palette, and you can use one like this called Apollo. You can find that on lowspec.com. So any palette will do, as long as you've got access to some nice bright colors. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just frame this, and I'll do that just by blocking in some shapes. So I'll use some bright colors that contrast against this gray background, even if they're not the colors that I'll be using. And I just want to frame things. So maybe it's kind of like the rabbit's going to be here, maybe a little smaller. And it doesn't really even need to be anything yet. It's just something that gives us a reference as to what the shapes are. We kind of want this to be a little more horizontal so we can see the rabbit. Yeah. Something like this. Yeah, we want the features, so the fluffy tail. Something like that. And maybe we'll work with that. On a new layer, let's Shift N. We're going to just go underneath that, and I want some eggs in the background. So maybe I'll just draw with some other shapes, some eggs. And again, another layer maybe behind that. We can go something maybe bigger. Maybe I want to create more of a separation here so that I have a little bit more, just like so that the silhouettes can breathe, right? I kind of want these to be a little off center. Maybe like leaning a little bit. And then maybe in front of both of these eggs, we've got one more smallest. And this kind of helps. We've got look a little bit of like a alternating sizes here, like medium, large, small. And that creates this nice triangle in terms of the actual composition. So we've got this sort of shape that goes up and then down, and then up and then down, up, down. So it's kind of like a fractal almost in terms of the composition. That's a little bit deep for what we're doing right now, but you know, it's not a bad place to start, huh? Okay, that's looking pretty good. And then maybe we'll just throw behind all of this some semblance of a basket if we need it. So we'll just throw this, you know, back here, and thinking about maybe the handle. And I don't want to fight with the ears a little, so maybe we'll put this like, that seems like a lot. We could always take this or leave it, so I'll keep it out for now, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so that was very simple and very straightforward. Just creating some compositional elements. None of this is perfect, none of it's right, but at least we've got something to work with, something on the canvas. We've even got some space at the top for some sort of like season's greetings, like, you know, Happy Easter or whatever you want to call it. So while I shift into the colors that I will be using, I guess it's a good idea to just lay down a background color that's a little more neutral. In this case, a black will be fine because I won't be using the black, but at the very least, it gives us something to play off. And I'll just work on the rabbit shape. I'm just gonna like split my window a little so I can see Leonardo, the app that I use for my notes, in the background, and that'll help us now, frame this and get what we want out of it. I think I like this rabbit the most. I think gray is probably a little better, but I like the actual proportions of this rabbit quite a lot. So let me talk to you about what's going on with me. You may have noticed that my channel's been a little more sparse in terms of the uploads. Some of this is because of just like general fatigue, or I have a couple of videos that are in the works that are not quite ready to be released. And, I've just made a decision really to not allow myself to get burnt out. I really want this channel to be valuable. And I try to keep to a weekly schedule, but if the schedule is something that I can't keep up, I would rather not upload and wait until I have something worth uploading for you. I think that's kind of it's more of an approach that I think maintains a standard. There are a couple of different ways to, think about that. I'm sure that many of you would like to just see content come from me and not worry about whether or not it's so good, because maybe you would think it was good anyway. And I appreciate that. I think that would be really heartening to know. But nonetheless, sometimes I just don't have the stamina to do an upload in a weekend, or I'm busy, or as you know, I do work on my game pretty much full time. That for me is more of a priority in terms of just like, if I need to spend time on that, or if working on that has left me with not enough energy to produce a video, that's kind of just where I am. That's kind of where it sits. And forcing myself to upload something on a day where I'm really tired, or if I need to be exercising, or going out and visiting family, it's unfortunately the videos are not as high of a priority in that sense. Where they are a priority is in the income that they generate. So a big part of my personal revenue does come from YouTube and the uploads that I make. But, it's not always the case that can sufficiently prepare me for whatever life throws at me. And just recently, there have been a few things with my health, and I'm getting married soon, that just meant that some of basically the income from these streams hasn't been quite enough to leave me like really comfortable. So I've taken an opportunity to do some contract work, part-time basically, with an old company that I used to work with before I was a game developer. I really like these people, and it's been good catching up with everybody who works there still. It's kind of like meeting up with old friends. So there have been some good things, and some stressful things that have been happening in my life as well. Overall, my priority is keeping like a really good grasp on my mental health, physical health when I can do that. Just trying to make sure that like above all, I have the stamina to keep doing what I'm doing. Making a game is a lot of work, especially an adventure game, as I've come to learn. There are a lot of decisions that I've made that make the process one that is, super time consuming. And work like that often leaves you in a position where you don't have reassurances every day that what you're doing is right. I've been doing this for like almost 5 years, well, more than 5 years now. So it's definitely an element of like trying to, pace myself for the marathon rather than sprinting into a ditch. With that said, I've been trying to take it a little easy during the last few weeks, and trying not to feel too guilty about just, I don't know, whatever things I can't control, or decisions that I've made. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's really common for me to make a decision, in full knowledge of like the consequences of that decision or whatever, to make a reasonable decision, but to still on some level treat myself in a way that expects me to act as if I hadn't made that decision. So in this case, like, I took a job that was part-time, which means it makes Insignia a part-time job too. Those are the two parts, right? But I still, feel a little guilty when I'm not working as fast as I would otherwise work, right? Now that's crazy because it's super obvious why that wouldn't be the case, why I wouldn't be able to do that. Nonetheless, the mind, it's not always capable of like being reasonable. That's why I make videos like this where I can just talk out loud and give you guys a little piece of what's happening with me. I also do want to talk about Insignia as well, just in terms of like what's happening with the project, how I feel about it, like any thoughts that I have. And to be honest, I have a lot of love for the project still. I'm really excited and enthusiastic about the progress that I've been making, and the prospect of continuing to work on it. I find myself in a state of like, I guess internally as a conflict. One side of the conflict has to do with knowing that the best work that I do is done when I'm creatively free, when I feel like I have the time and the energy to, mull over ideas and develop them naturally. Another part of me feels like I don't want my whole life to be this thing. I don't want to like spend 30 years on it. So there needs to be like a split sense of responsibility that I have. Like I need to get a move on, but I also need to not rush it. It's quite difficult to really like nail, in that sense, the balance of how I should be working. And I bet a lot of you who work on your own games feel this way, especially as time goes on. So for me, it's like the idea of, like I'm getting married soon, starting a family, when does that become a priority? And is there ever a scenario where I think to myself like, hey, it's time to deprioritize Insignia? Or is Insignia my like ticket to having that life? And do I have to work hard to earn those things? Mentally it can be a little bit messy. Like I'll be totally upfront. Like it's something that I have sought like professional advice over, in terms of like, seeing a psych and just like making sure that my head is right and that I'm, on top of me. So I guess like the only thing that I can give you in times like this, when all I have is like my experiences, not just advice, this is the advice that I can give you and the transparency I can give you. And I know that a lot of you do appreciate that transparency. So I feel good about being able to tell you that. And yeah, like back on the YouTube channel, like one of the reasons why sometimes it's difficult for me to upload is because I feel like I've shared a lot already about what I know. In fact, I've probably shared most of what I know in terms of pixel art, like techniques. It's an art form, and a lot of that has to do with creative expression, personal expression. Outside of the fundamentals, a lot of what defines you as an artist will come down to you. It's not something that I can just give you. As a result, like there's only so many things I can talk about. I made a bit of a commitment, probably at the end of last year, I think it was, that I would try and focus a bit more on my content around my game and my journey. One of the reasons why I started making the game in the first place, or making the YouTube channel, I should say, in the first place, was to promote the game. And for the first couple of years of the channel's existence, it seemed like I was getting more attention if I made tutorials rather than talk about my game. And that's for obvious reasons, right? There are more people interested in learning pixel art than are interested in my game. And I'm sure many of you who watch my content aren't interested in my game, naturally. But my game is my priority. Yeah, it's a huge part of my life. So I actually get asked this quite often, when I'm working on stream. Like, hey Adam, like what is your expectation around the game's release date? Do you have a release date? I've been working on Insignia I've been at least part-time on it since 2016. And over that time, I've been feeling the project grow. I mean, the story is something that I've had pretty much locked away for quite some time in terms of like the broad narrative strokes. It's an adventure game, so there's a lot of building a relationship with the character. There's a lot of character growth and character-driven action. So a lot of the development outside of the technical stuff has been, especially when it comes to content, really trying to build some kind of a series of experiences that the player has that gives them a really strong relationship with the main character and creates an experience like when you play the game that that you feel like has value that's not just tied to the game's novelty, I haven't really been able to help but to think of it as an experiment. So I have these ideas about like what makes a game worth playing. And specifically I have this opinion that while, you know, mechanics are definitely important, I mean, they make a game, but the thing that gets you invested in the property of a game, the actual like content of a game beyond the systems, to me, that's story and character development. And stories don't, to me, have, well, at least my hypothesis is that stories don't have the same requirement of novelty to be useful. And sometimes it's useful to be told the same story from a different perspective or a different take on the same story. So like the adventure story or the hero's journey, these are archetypes in storytelling that I think, you know, have been around and examined, you know, for a long time. We still go to movies that have these archetypes in them. Now, before I go any further, I'm just thinking about what I want this background to be. I think the brown is quite nice. This kind of like straw hay is pretty common. Chickens, eggs. So I'm going to try to just create a baseline here that's a little bit more, a bit nicer. Now, the way that I've drawn these, just so that you can understand what's happening, is it's top lit. So the light's coming down. And because I want this to look like it's facing away from the camera, right? The top of the egg is back away. I want you to be able to see more of it, basically. If I drew the same egg over here and we rotated it or like flipped it, so edit, flip horizontal, and I wanted it to look like it was facing towards the camera, I would really darken this side, this front side. Yeah, now it looks like it's facing towards us. Because, you know, if you were to think about where the light can hit and where it can't hit, you know, it can't hit underneath this. So once the surface rolls under, anything that's on top is blocking the light and anything that's below is darker. So just thinking like that, it's a lot of art, including pixel art, is about being able to kind of pre-calculate light in your head, what light would do in certain situations. And yeah, that's how it goes. So it's a skill you'll spend a lot of time developing. So back to Insignia. Making content for the game is really hard. I've spent a lot of time while working on the game trying to create tools that are efficient, but nonetheless, because it's a one-man show, even, you know, with the best tools available, it still takes time to design story beats, you know, the side plot stuff, implement them, test them, you know, and then appraise them and say, oh yeah, this is fun or this isn't fun. That stuff takes a long time. Like making the content, which includes the story beats and the NPCs, the animations, the environments, the enemy designs with their combat and their animations, all of that, or any kind of like item drops or like special key items that you collect for quests and what you can use those items for in long-term progression systems like forging and unlocking better and new weapons, any kind of stat upgrades, all of that stuff helps drive that experience and the player's motivation to continue the story. And it's a lot. It's really, really difficult to stay on top of it. I think I like this pattern here, the swirly, and I like it like one step up. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm trying to preserve a rule. The rule is that we've got a lighter color, the swirl, on top of the next color down. You can see that here happening. If I click this and go down with Alt held, you can see those two are right next to each other. And the same logic applies. This and this are right next to each other. And so you can see the swirls from back here in the egg, even though there's lighting, because of the relationship, the rule is preserved as you're looking at it. And now we're going to do the same thing across some of these other ones. So I've got swirls, and I think maybe speckles would be good for the next. We could also lighten the rabbit in general. We could just go boop. I do like it lighter. It's kind of fun. Maybe a little distracting. I'm gonna try maybe to add a foreground element here of like something like straw or just something framing it a little bit. So yeah, just to round off what I was saying about Insignia, like I want you to know that the game is it's coming along, and it's coming along as fast as I can make it. As far as my expectations for release, I know that's where I kind of started and just got like meandered off, but I see myself working on this game at least another 2 years. I expect to be working on chapters 2, 3, and 4 during that time. Anything could happen before then. Like if I was approached by a very reputable publisher who was looking to help me expedite the game and actually get it out there sooner and not sacrifice quality, so you know, add additional resources, additional animators, and you know, helping people with writing, as well as things like localization, quality control, publication, that kind of stuff, then only then would I see the game coming out any sooner than 2 years from now. Outside of that, I mean, I would still expect to be dealing with a publisher for those last elements, but at the latest, I would say we're looking at probably end of 2024 that I would start engaging with a publisher on that stuff. And at that point, I would say I would have done 80% of the actual game's content, at least in some fashion, you know, whether it's complete or not, or with full polish. My hand will have touched like 80% of the game by that point. So it's still a long way out. And you can catch me working on it live on Twitch almost every weekday. At this stage, I've been streaming this year at a pretty wonky schedule, trying to appeal to both my Eastern and Western Hemisphere audiences. I know that my schedule in the last few years has been okay for, you know, late night American watchers. Some Brazilian audiences as well like to watch my content, but I would say for the most part, you know, I would expect maybe only Australians to be really comfortable with the viewing hours. For those people in Europe, it probably isn't great, and maybe some in Asia might also find it okay. So to try to, you know, alleviate that and appeal to a bit of a broader audience, I've been trying to divvy up and change my streaming hours, although it's been difficult to work into my own schedule. You know, things like meals and, you know, daily kind of like errands and things that need to get done. That stuff can't really be shifted around. I need to eat dinner at dinner time, you know, I need to have breakfast at breakfast time, and I need to sleep when it's time to sleep. So I'm limited in just how much experimentation I can do. So I'm just sitting here doing a little bit of tweaking. I think I'm pretty happy with the general look of this thing. I think the angle that we've gone for here, like a higher angle, suits it a little bit more. But I'm missing, I think, some of that brightness. So I might just see if I can bring in some kind of a green and oh, that's quite nice. It doesn't really make a lot of sense visually, but maybe we could just do this, and maybe this could be like water. Yeah, maybe just a message for you all. A happy Easter at the end. Just going to block in the letters first. E-A-S-T-E-R. What can I do with this? Maybe if we shrink this down, we can create a bit of a font feel here. I wonder if we can make this a bit taller. It's got a bit of a vibe to it, huh? I'm trying to be consistent here with the font, so you can see here the difference between the A and the P is just this line down here. So we've got, you know, one, like the shape would be like this. That's like the base shape. Maybe one more. And then that would be like an O or a, you know, D or something like that. Maybe a D would be more like this. And then we've got this center. So that becomes A. If you wanted a P, like that. If you wanted an R, maybe we go like this. We'll see it in a second, I suppose. I feel like we could probably drop that from the T just for the sake of it. And I think that the capitals probably could afford to be a bit wider. I just think we're losing a little bit of balance there by not having the H be a bit wider. There we go. I think I don't like this gap, so I'm going to fill it in with the blue egg. Nice. Now, maybe we can give some life into this rabbit's eyes. I think maybe just these two white lines here should be not quite enough. That's pretty good. And just working on a little bit more shape here. Just some opportunity to show where this light goes to give it some depth. And I think the darker green does create more contrast. Maybe we can make this like a grassy transition. For the sake of this, I'm going to duplicate this color here, paint it, and then slightly hue shift, just so that we can make this just like as nice of an image as we can. You know, I don't actually want the contrast to be that strong in the back. I think that suits it a little bit better. And maybe we could just give ourselves a bit more space here. Just to create the right mix of saturation there. Pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think I'll finish here, and this concludes the 64 by 64 Easter greeting card to you, my viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Before I end the video though, I did just want to say a few parting words on just my feelings and sentiments regarding Insignia and this channel. So as I said, you know, the channel is something that I want to continue to grow, that I want to be able to provide content for you on a regular basis, but that I don't feel confident I have brand new, topics every single week to give you that I haven't already covered. And on top of that, I do want to be able to talk more about my projects and to diarize the process of what I do on a day-to-day basis, right? The things that I do on stream and for my work, for the game, and the things that I make videos about. Ultimately, for me to be able to do them every week, they kind of need to converge a little bit more. So I have made a video talking about this in the past, and you know that that's what I do. And from your perspective, it may not change, but just from an internal perspective, I think I really need to remind myself that it's okay to do that. And, I really don't think it would be possible for me to just like do brand new tutorials every week without duplicating my work or repeating myself. Insignia itself, it's something that you may not have the immediate opportunity to play or to test. I may not be able to give you something to buy for at least a couple of years, but I hope you will enjoy the process of watching the thing develop. And I hope that I can make compelling videos diarizing the slow but steady evolution of this thing. Personally, I started indie game development because of something that I was inspired by, a film called Indie Game the Movie. I always idealized and fantasized about the grueling, many years that it would take to work on the game and what I might learn about myself and about game development in doing that. And I think that some of you, at least, probably share that. Some of you, if you can't work on games yourself, maybe you're interested in just the inside look about like, what is it like to make something this big by yourself? So I want to be able to share more of that with you. And that's what I have to talk about every week. If I can separate the value of the videos from the utility of teaching you something every week, something new, maybe you can still find value in what it is that I'm experiencing and how I fail or succeed at that, right? So there's less of an expectation that I make some kind of like progress. So it's not going to be necessarily, I designed this new system this week. It's more going to be this week, I've been working on this portion of the game and maybe I succeeded in something, or maybe I failed. Maybe I didn't quite get what I was trying to get done. And this is where I got stuck. Or if I made a little bit of progress, this is where I made that progress and these are the decisions that I'm making. And maybe you'll find some comfort in that too. So I hope you have a safe and happy holiday. We've got 4 days of weekend for us, although we're taking care of a kitten for most of it for the next couple of weeks. And yeah, look forward to new videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hey pal, thanks for watching, and thanks most especially to the patrons and Twitch subs who support this channel and my game dev project Insignia. To find out more, click the links in the description below. And if you like this video, tell YouTube by clicking the like button, and then YouTube will tell me, and then I'll make more videos. That's nice. Thanks again, and until next time.